Hello, everyone. It's a Bright Future Fridays today. My name is Orion. I'm part of the Youth Advisory Council.
My name is Caden, and I'm also part of the Youth Advisory Council.
And today's topic is serve. This is the fourth week. Next week is the last week, so make sure you tune in. And how about, can we get your name and age, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself?
Are you reaching out to me?
Like
Either
you
one.
too, you too.
Sure, I'll go. My name is Kurt Miller. I am 35 years old. What other question did you have?
Tell us a little about, tell us a little bit about yourself and like what you do.
Yeah, so I work for the Annie E. Casey Foundation. It is a private nonprofit foundation in Baltimore City. It was founded by the UPS founder. Just for some context there. And the goal that we have is to build a brighter future for the nation's children and youth. So we're trying to make sure that all young people have family connections, relationships, communities, and educational and employment opportunities that they need to thrive. And we're really targeting the ages between 14 and 25. My role there is the director of grants management. We give out around 1,300 grants a year. Grants are how we fund our work, and they are going to more grassroots organizations or advocacy organizations that do the direct work, and we treat ourselves just as really the funder for that. We also go to instances like this where we can talk about what we're doing, other conferences, and share what's going on. Like I said, we're giving around 1,300 grants a year. We have about 800 different grantees. We only give in the United States as well as its territories, so like the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And that equates to about $100 million a year that we give annually.
All right, Miss Miss Angelica.
Hi, I'm Angelica Carliner. I'm also 35 years old. I am a personal injury attorney here in Baltimore. My firm, Warnkin LLC, we handle workers' compensation, medical malpractice, and straightforward personal injury, which is a lot of car accidents, slip and fall cases, things like that. A lot of what I do is help my clients get access to medical treatment. It's not just about people think of car accident lawyers and they might just think, oh, settlement money and things like that. But a lot of what our clients come to us for initially is because, let's say they were in a car accident. Okay, well, now how are they going to get around? Who's going to fix their car? Do they need a rental? How are they going to pay for it? How are they going to pay for medical treatment, particularly if they don't have health insurance and now they're injured? That's a lot of what we do is help our clients get the resources that they need immediately so that they can get back on their feet, on the path towards healing. A lot of them are missing time from work because they're too injured to go, but they're paycheck to paycheck people. So how are they going to survive if they're missing work? So we help, make sure that they can get to their treatment. They don't have to worry about additional out-of-pocket expenses. And of course, at the appropriate time that, they get financial compensation, because we can't turn back the clock and give them, an uninjured body back. So we can give them some money to help.
Yeah, I usually think about that. You know how like people are like, if they hit me, I'll get like a ton of money. But then like, if you get hit like too bad, you might get a broken leg, or you may never be able to like, walk the same way that you've done before. So I'm glad there's like something there to like help those people who like really don't want to get into the car accidents. They just want to, like drive around and like not be injured and just have like a healthy body.
Right, it's exactly right. It's interesting because I would say for my car accident clients, when they call, their main concern is actually their car. First, they're worried about how are they going to get their car fixed, and then they're worried about, oh yeah, my leg is hurting, my back is hurting.
All right, Miss Christine, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Awesome. So I am Christine Cherry. I teach high school in Anne Arundel County. So I teach English literature, and I teach a course in the IB program called Theory of Knowledge. I used to teach in Baltimore City, but now I moved out to the county, and that's about it. I don't know what else you need to know.
All right, King, you got a question for them?
I'll start with Christine. How did you get started with this career?
How did I get started? This is maybe not the answer you want to hear, but when you are an English major in college, it's pretty much academia or some sort of teaching. And my sister's a teacher and my father was a teacher, so it was, I guess, I'm second generation of teachers, so that was a big reason why. I also had a pretty solid high school experience. I actually teach at the high school I went to, so it was a good way to kind of give back to that community that I grew up in, and I know the kids I know what the kids are going through, maybe a little bit better than someone who didn't grow up in that area.
Another question for you: how would you
Sure.
change the learning curriculum?
Oh my gosh, I feel like we're very lucky in the state of Maryland to be able to teach what we want pretty much compared to other states. I think a lot of teachers would say I teach, well, what grade are you all in?
I graduated a couple years ago. I'm in
Okay.
first semester of college.
Okay, perfect.
And I'm going to the 9th grade, so.
Awesome. So you all know exactly what, so there's testing and there's so much state testing, and I teach 10th grade English, which is when you get tested. So the only thing I would wish is that I didn't have to spend so much time teaching to a test versus actually reading books or reading nonfiction. There's so many times that I just have to teach students how to use their Chromebook to take a test, and that can take days. And it's always on your English class, since that's the class you take. So I think less of a focus on that and more freedom to kind of pick and choose what we want to do. I think that would be a pretty common answer as well.
For Miss Angelica and Mr. Kurt, could you please explain how you got started in your career as well?
Angelica, you want to go first?
Thank you. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I never wanted to do anything else. So when I went to college, it was knowing that my goal is to go to law school. So in terms of how did I become a personal injury lawyer, it sort of just fell into my lap. After law school, my first job was as a law clerk at one of our local trial courts. So I was assigned to a judge, and I was his law clerk, and I would do research, and I would get to watch all sorts of proceedings in court, family law, criminal stuff, civil, and really the job market was not great after that. So I just took the first best job that I could get, which was actually a medical malpractice defense lawyer. So I actually defended nursing homes who were being sued by patients and their families for medical malpractice. And after a little bit of time there, I realized I wanted to, there's actually not, with that, I wasn't in court as much as I wanted it to be. Those cases take a very long time. It's a lot of work leading up until court, and then they settle. So not a lot of actual trial work, which is what I realized I wanted to do. So then I started getting my feelers out for, another place to work, because I really wanted to be in court. And I found a great firm doing plaintiff's personal injury, and it was a lot of immediate trial work, and I really liked it. And after a few years there, I just, it's where I wanted to be doing this kind of work.
How long do these cases usually last?
That's a very good question. I would say my average personal injury client is not very seriously injured, meaning they might have some muscular sprains or strains, and then they get 6 to 12 weeks of medical treatment. And then the case in terms of settlement discussions and things like that happens after they're done all their medical treatment and they're pretty much healed. So I would say from start to finish, 6 months is the average, but then we have people who are more seriously injured who their treatment takes much longer, or there's what we call liability issues, meaning who we think is responsible and should pay does not agree that they're at fault. They might dispute how the car accident happened, or maybe they're at fault, but they think my client's also partially at fault, which in Maryland means that you get 0, which is different than most other states. So those cases can take 3-4 years. Once you're in court takes a very long time. So yeah, I would say 6 months to 4 years.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I'll jump in. So, unlike Angelica and Christine, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. When I was a high school student, I was an athlete and I got an opportunity to write for the newspaper. And I thought journalism was going to be my career. And I met some actual, like, prominent journalists, and they said that it sucked. They said the travel was really bad. They didn't see their families. The stories would be written and disposed, or not the story they wanted to write. And that kind of soured me. So that was halfway through college where I realized like my English and history degrees weren't going to assist me with anything. So I went with the idea of being a teacher. And I think Christine hit the nail on the head of why I'm no longer an educator is I didn't want to teach towards a test. I had a supervisor that was like, this is all you need to teach, ignore everything else. And I thought, especially with the way the world is right now, there's a lot we can glean from history, and we were not doing that. So when the recession was going on, I quit my job and moved back home. And I found temp work at Lockheed Martin as a contract writer, which then led me when I was out with my girlfriend, now long-term partner. We were running through the city of Baltimore City. I saw the Annie E. Casey Foundation. The next day they had a job opening for a contract writer. I applied, and I have been there for 10 and a half years now. And it really aligned with not only the work that I was doing, but also what I want to be doing, and that's making a change. I don't know how to, raise the minimum wage. I don't know how to get everyone maternity and paternity leave. I don't know how to make sure that everyone has money for food, but I can make the systems easier so that people can navigate those and get what they need. And that's where my skill set lies.
Yeah, the job seems like a little stressful because like there's like these so many like questions that like need to be answered, right? And like there's not like the best way to like get to that. So you have to like work towards it, and you have to do like everything that's in your power to do it.
There's a lot of competing interests. We have to abide by IRS regulations, federal, state, local laws, and our own internal policies, as well as what our board wants. So I sit in a unique position because I want to do what's best for the people that are on my staff and that are trying to fund, but I also am looking out for the people that we are giving money to, because we are giving money to large organizations that you will see on the news every day, and as well as grassroots organizations that you may never hear of. And I want the process to be very similar for those receiving $500,000 and those receiving $5,000. And we're trying to be as equitable as possible, but it's a tough balancing act to follow.
I have a question for all of y'all. What from your job? What has been the most challenging thing for you guys?
And can I add on to that? And how did you solve it?
I can jump in and give everyone some time to think. So like I said, I've been at the foundation for 10 years, and the biggest thing that they talk to us about is improving and embedding equity in our work. And when I think about like minimum wage or child welfare or juvenile justice reform, I can find easy ways to think of that. I was having a really hard time trying to find an equitable way to make payments to organizations or make applications easier. Something that we did in 2022, it launched in 2022, was raise our indirect cost rates for all of our grantees. So what that means is when we are giving money to organizations, say we give them $100,000, we know that they need money for rent, for the office, to keep the lights on, utilities, etc. And they may not be true programmatic costs to actually do the summer camp that they're doing or to go to Capitol Hill and talk to someone, but they still need their rent paid for, their utilities. And we were not giving them enough money. So we did a full year review of our grantees, how much money that they were reporting, because it is public knowledge. It's on a 990. We can all search it. If you ever get bored, GuideStar has that information. And we saw that this was not an issue that affected organizations of color versus not organizations of color. This was an issue that impacted organizations without money compared to those.
Hello, are you still there? If you didn't know, you froze.
This was like the average day in the life of teaching during COVID. So
Well, while we're waiting, does anyone else want to answer the question?
I can go since I'm already unmuted. So I think obviously like COVID is probably the hardest thing, like teaching during that. But I think also, oh, he left. He'll come back. He'll come back. I think the biggest thing is, and we've all been to school, so we all think we know. But when any individuals in high school or middle school or whatever you teach, like they're all going through their own thing. And I think, at least for me, I want to know what everyone's going through and quote unquote, like save everyone that I can. And I think that's something you have to almost get over as a teacher. You know, I think within the first year of teaching, I have lost 2 students that I knew. And it's just like something that it happens, and you kind of have to sit with that and say like, well, I know I can't do everything at once. Like I can only report things that I can only do so much as one person, especially in high school when I see 150 students a day or every other day now. But I think that was the hardest for me, just knowing that there's so many people out there and there's so many things that I can't do by myself, and a lot of it's organizational. What Kurt was saying, a lot of it's organizational and not my fault or anyone's fault. And it's almost a sad reality, but I think with any career, maybe Angelica agrees that sometimes that's what happens, and you have to kind of sit with that and realize that sometimes things won't go your way, and sometimes the person you think is right won't succeed in the end. But it's a lot to bring home and keep in your mind, and kind of learning how to deal with that, I think, is the hardest part.
Yeah, I can relate. For me, the biggest challenge is when I can't get my client everything that they deserve. And that normally happens when we deal with, we are constantly dealing with insurance money and insurance limits. So somebody is in a car accident and it's the other car's fault, well, that's great. But my client mostly can only recover up to the maximum of what insurance coverage is available on the other vehicle. And in Maryland, we have very small minimums. So you have a car in Maryland, you are required to have car insurance. The cheapest car insurance you can buy will afford you $30,000 per person in coverage if you injure somebody with your car. So I have a lot of, and that's what most people have because that's what they can afford. The more coverage you buy, the more expensive it's going to be. And car insurance is very expensive. So most people buy the cheapest that they can get. So I'll have clients who have very serious injuries, broken bones, thousands of dollars in medical bills, and we find out that the responsible vehicle, the max they can pay is $30,000. Almost never enough to cover bills, my fee, case expenses, and to leave this person with money in their pocket that they can use to help themselves because of their injuries. And there's nothing I can do. It is what it is. So what we do in that situation is we try to find ways to maximize from the 30 the amount that our client gets. If it means calling around some of these billing offices and asking them to reduce their bills, or we cut down on expenses somehow, or what have you. We do what we can so that we can maximize. But it is what it is. A lot of what I do is I'm part of a professional organization, Plaintiffs Lawyers in Maryland organization, and a lot of what that organization does is lobby. So we're always lobbying in our local legislature to increase, insurance coverage accessible to people, so that a lot of people aren't stuck with, not a whole lot to compensate them. But for now, when that happens, I mean, it's just there's not a whole lot we can do, and it's very challenging.
A theme I've been seeing in like both of yours, answer is like just doing what you can, even though there's some things that you can't do. You just do what you have to do, or do that you want to do to like make things better for your clients. And there's when there's nothing much you can do, just do everything that you can do.
Right.
Oh, I want to ask a question. Could you give us a word of wisdom, like from your life? It could be anything, long or short, anything.
I can go. I don't know. I think that just honestly, just like letting, it sounds bad, but maybe just like letting things happen. I think a lot of people, and myself included, got very overwhelmed when like the pandemic happened. We all had to change our things, but all we could really do is like roll with punches and see what happens. And I think that that's something that, you know, I can't control that there's a pandemic going on. I can't control that I have to teach to this test, but what can I do to make it more comfortable for myself and make sure I don't go crazy thinking about it? So that's always been like, you know, it might rain outside the day that you have to run a race or something, and that's great. You know, you train for rain. I coached cross country too, but yeah, just things happen, and you just have to, you know, it might rain, it might be nice, it might snow, but you are just work with what you got.
I would say keep reaching higher, even if you've obtained the thing you wanted to do, you made it onto the football team, or you learned this song on guitar that you were practicing and you were trying to master it. Don't artificially set your own ceiling. Keep reaching high. You will be so surprised to see where you can go if you just have that mindset. And one day you'll be looking down and being like, my gosh, I can't believe that's where I started. I never imagined I'd be all the way here. And you just don't stay satisfied. Always reach higher, and you'll just be so amazed at what you can unlock in yourself.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of saying that my mom used to say. She would be like, "Why is the sky the limit? You should go even farther beyond that." So that, you know, I hear that a lot, and you know, it's like I think the same kind of sets like a little boundary. You should just go as high as you literally can. If you think that you can, if you like want to stop somewhere, there's always like more to that. I see that whether you're a music producer, an artist, in like a many creative fields, you can always improve yourself, do better over. And I've seen people do this like 40, 50 years looking at their like portfolios. And for, yeah, Mr. Kurt, the question earlier was like, could you give us like a word of wisdom? And, you know, it could be like from anything, long or short, any walk of life, like anything.
Yeah, sorry about disconnecting. My router went out, so that was fun. Perils of working from home. Word of wisdom. I really liked what Angelica was saying, and I also want to add just like an asterisk to that of be flexible. You know, if you would have asked me 15 years ago, I thought I'd be a journalist or still coaching sports or what have you. I, you know, saw other pathways open up, and I went with them. And there's just so much you can glean from new opportunities that are arising. And as you continue to challenge yourself, you'll learn a lot more about something that you're passionate about. So don't just pigeonhole yourself into one thing because you're, you know, on that track. There, it could branch out into many things.
All right. What's the like common misconception about your work field?
So as a major philanthropic funder, you know, we're thinking like the Gates Foundations that you're hearing about, the Ford Foundations. It's that we have infinite money. And I mentioned earlier, we gave away $100 million last year. And that sounds like a ton of money. To put it in perspective, to run the Baltimore City and Baltimore County Public Schools, it costs about $3.6 billion a year. If we gave away every dollar we have, that includes our endowment that came from money from UPS stock, we have about $3.2 billion. We couldn't even run the school system for one calendar year. So the common misconception is that there's a lot of money being poured into these things, and there is, but everything costs a lot of money. And it's just a constant battle to make even.
I can go. Oh, go ahead, Angelica.
Sorry, I always say that. My favorite misconception is that we chase ambulances. which actually in some states they're called runners. It's not illegal for a plaintiff firm like mine to hire somebody to listen to police radios and go out and be like, oh, here's a business card. I heard you were in a car accident. Call this lawyer. That's actually illegal in Maryland. Lawyers are not allowed to do that, and we certainly don't. We reject a ton of cases if we think we can't help, or partially because the Maryland laws are so archaic. And like I said, if the person bringing the claim is 1% at fault and the other person is 99% at fault in Maryland, that means the person who only has 1% at fault gets 0. Most other states are not like that. So we don't just take every case and make frivolous claims just because we see dollar signs everywhere. I think that's the misconception. We can only take certain cases. We only help people who we think are really injured. We don't do it in any kind of illegal way.
I think, well, everyone's most likely, unless they were homeschooled, has been to a school before, so they think they know a lot about what my job entails, because everyone has their own opinion about it. But I think from adults, as being an adult, it's like, oh, well, you have the whole summer not to work. But I'm not getting paid during the summer. I get paid for 10 months out of the year. So I know in Baltimore City, you could choose if you wanted to get paid in the summer or not. But in Anne Arundel County, you don't get that. You just get your paycheck spread out. So you can't even kind of control that part of it. A lot of times you say, oh, you get summers off, oh, you get holidays off, but you're not getting paid for those things, and you have such a limited amount of pay anyway, such a limited amount of days off. So that's probably like the biggest misconception, is that you get like this free pass for your summers and you don't. But I think a lot of it, and I think there's the stereotype that teachers like live at their school and they like sleep in their desks and things like that. And some people do that. I don't. I leave when I'm supposed to leave, because teachers are salaried, so you're only there what your union contracts you to be there. So if I decide to stay until 6 p.m., it's not like I'm getting extra money to stay until 6 p.m. So if you stay after school to like chaperone a sport or something, you're not getting anything more for it. So I think there's definitely that conception that, your job isn't hard, you just have to do this all day. But, when you only get a maybe 30-minute break in one planning period, which might be taken over by a meeting, it's hard to get everything done in one day that you need to get done, because I'm sure you all were just in school, you all can see your grades all the time on your phone and have asked your teachers, hey, why haven't you put this in? Well, I apologize, but I'm not going to do anything during my break. So, but yeah, I think I think we all thought our teachers had this life, and when you actually do it, it's super different.
I find it crazy, like even like grading paperwork, that takes like so much time out of your day. I can never do it. So I never even had like the thought in my mind that I want to be a teacher. There's
that you'll be free in the weekends. I think I'm teaching summer school right now, and we don't teach on Fridays. And I had parents, I should just turn my email off on my phone, but like parents are emailing saying, can you give me the work on like a Saturday afternoon? I'm like, I'm not responding to you. Like your job doesn't require you to come in on Saturdays, and most likely, so it's just like that you'll be available to them all the time. And I guess the issue is some people are, and that's too bad for them, I guess. But just expectations. We all have our expectations of our teachers because we all have done it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people like underestimate like the amount of work that goes into like a teacher's day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you're probably making your own lesson plans too, and you're punching data in every day, and if you forget to take attendance, I guess the lawyers. I always remember this story. A teacher forgot to take attendance, and a teenager had like robbed a bank at gunpoint, and they had been marked present for their class, so they weren't found guilty because they couldn't prove where they were. And that sucks, So the most important thing we do is take attendance, but yeah, I mean, it happens. You think about all the things you have to do that aren't like in your job description, and if you forget to take attendance, things could happen.
So, any advice to like anyone in the chat trying to go into your work field?
I think Christine kind of hit on something I want to talk about, and that's just setting your boundaries. Nowadays, all of us have our emails on our phone. We're giving out our business cards or talking to people, and you're giving your cell phone number. And just because you can reach me on a Saturday or at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday doesn't mean I'm available. And the problem is once you do it once, then it's going to become almost a requirement. So keep that in mind for any job you're doing, that you have your own time and please value it.
Good answer.
I think so a lot of people go into teaching right after high school or college because they say, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I'm just going to go teach. And they usually 3 years. If you make it 3 years, they say you can make it forever. But 3 years is usually the cutoff. And that's about as long as Teach for America and Urban Teachers and those things. That's how long their programs are. And those people usually leave schools that they should be staying at. But I think it's actually want to do the job that you want to do. Be interested in what you are doing. I get to talk about poetry with kids a lot and get to talk about that. And I really like the philosophy style class I teach. And I just think about that in my everyday life. And if I didn't enjoy those things outside of my actual job, I probably wouldn't have fun at my job and not get to talk about I get to talk about what I want all day long. There's other things involved, but I get to do what I like to do and what I would be doing, just surrounded by books and making less money, not from the government, at a university. So I think that's a special thing. So just don't pick something just to pick it or because it makes a lot of money. Just actually like what you're doing, because there are days that you probably will hate what you're doing, but could be worse. Could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's great if you are passionate about what you do and you enjoy what you do, but it's also great if you don't necessarily feel that way and you sort of view your career as a means to an end. It's how you support your lifestyle and your family. That's perfectly fine too. So if you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to try to, oh, is this where I really belong? If things are great, and you may just not have that passion for the work that you do. And I'm not going to say that every lawyer has that. That's okay too. It can just be your job, and you can focus on things outside of your job that does bring you joy and things like that. That's okay too.
Right. What was your question?
I have a question for Christine. What made you decide to become a teacher for 10th grade?
Well, when I taught in Baltimore City, I taught 9th grade all day for 3 years in a row. So that was the big reason why I didn't want to teach 9th grade anymore. But I guess, and I just got thrown into 10th grade, and I think 10th grade is the perfect year. My sophomore year of high school was awesome for me, so I think it was awesome. It's just you all have your own opinions, but you're not seniors and away from us and want to go do something else. But I also, that was another thing about if you did any sort of program. We have a friend who's I don't know what I think he teaches math, but he majored in history, and he doesn't really know anything about math, but he's teaching it every day. So, which you're oh my gosh, what is that? And I don't know. I mean, I was also I taught yoga right before I started teaching, when I was in graduate school, and I really liked that environment. So I just I guess I just hanging out with people and sharing what I know with them, and this is a job you can do. I also was a server at a restaurant, and I felt like that was something else that I could do, just have conversations with people. And teaching's hard. It's not easy. I liked what Angelica said too, of not making it your life. The first thing people ask you at a party or when you're out somewhere is well, what do you do? I don't know. I go travel, and they're no, what's your job? And it's, is my job really the definition of who I am in the end? So I like what she said, but I don't know. I mean, I feel I'm second generation, maybe we'll have a third generation teacher too. So. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Well, do you have any questions for us?
Have you all thought about anything that you want to do or things that you enjoy? Or yeah,
I've
like what are you going to college for? Yeah.
well, for me, I like engineering. I like STEM. So I'm still in the process of what I would do, but I still have years to figure it out. But so far, I believe I want to become an engineer because that's something that I've always wanted to be me when I grew up. Because my people, in my family are engineers, and I just thought that would be cool to try out, and it would I would gain more because I do STEM, and that's something that helps with that.
For me personally, even in my free time, I do a little bit of coding. I'm proficient in Python. I did do a little bit of HTML, but you know, people in cybersecurity, and I've seen this like hard for like some people to find jobs in there. So I'm trying to do software development. It's always something. You're always on an app, and I really like designing things too. So I'm working in graphic design as well.
Those are like the jobs of the future. My fiance is an engineer, so he's across the table from me. But I think he likes it. I don't know, but that's what people. I mean, most people want to do STEM or like any sort of, and I think coding is like the way of the future, and it's so creative. I think we think of like dance and painting and like visual arts a lot of the time as the creative outlets, but honestly, like anything can be creative if you're being creative about it. So I think it's awesome.
And just to add on real quick, we're talking all about these skills that we have, and so many are transferable. I mentioned earlier I'm a teacher. When I came to where I am now, I spent probably 3 years as training staff, which basically is teaching. And honestly, like I would have rather taught children again than adults. And you're talking about coding. I've been learning coding over the past few years, and we always think of coding as apps or the code that makes websites work. But now a big push is data visualization. So many people are using Excel for so many times, but Excel looks boring. And when you're going to give a presentation to someone and you can make it look better because you're using Canva or Power BI or one of those programs, like that's something just to keep in the back of your mind. But I did have a question as you opened it up. How did you all get involved in the Youth Advisory Council?
For me, it was my sister. She told me about it. She's been in youth works, but like before the Youth Advisory Council, I had like a job at the mayor's office of employment development, which is where we are right now. And they really didn't know what to do with me until I guess they thought of it. How about we let these kids actually do something, talk to the youth, let them figure out what they wanted to do with their jobs. And I'm like the first member ever. I've been here for around 3 years. Yesterday, I like the job. We get to do like a vast array of things. This week we got to speak with the mayor, which was yesterday, and on Tuesday we got to like ride in boats. So that was like insane.
Yeah, that was
I would
really
never
cool.
expected it from this job.
That was something that I would probably do again. It was interesting because, I mean, speaking for myself, it seemed like some people weren't really excited for this visit, but everyone really enjoyed it.
That's awesome too, and like making those connections really young. My colleague at the school I used to teach at actually like taught Brendan Scott at Mervo, so he's like gets to be in that life and like gets to support someone like that he got to see go to that level, and that's always such a cool thing to see him now. And that's maybe like the best part about working with people when they're younger is like, oh my gosh, like now you're here and I can still support you even though you're not quote unquote my student anymore. And he goes to all his events and everything, and that's awesome.
Well, are there any other questions?
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, we're wrapping up, and we'll see you on Monday. Thank you so much for coming.
This was a
Thank you
great interview.
guys. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
great day.
both. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You as well.